Excited to get going this week with practice today. After looking at the film of Indiana the first couple days and their first couple games, they got a good team. A couple years into the system on defense, guys on that side flying around, and they're doing a good job with the new coordinator there on offense. So we know going on the road, first conference game in the Big Ten, every time we play Indiana, it's a tough game. Those guys always come ready to play, and so we got our hands full early on. But looking forward to get going with practice today.
We'll open it up for questions. Third row right, Dylan.
Benjamin Victor's had a really strong start to the season. What have you seen out of him as looks like he's kind of starting to turn the corner a little bit?
Yeah, I think Ben is important for us as we go forward. That one drive, we threw a back shoulder fade to him, and that kind of got us going. He's the X receiver, and if he's in a one-on-one matchup and he can win that one-on-one matchup, then that changes schematically how teams are going to defend us. But he's got to be that guy. He's got to be the Terry McLaurin for us last year, the Paris Campbell and Johnny Dixon, those guys. And when he makes that big play, that got us going on that drive, and he's done that so far. So now that we get into conference play, he's going to have to continue that.
Third row right, Rob.
You've been around the last 2 years. You were there for Iowa and Purdue. We've talked a lot about players and play calling. I'm curious about the psychological side, how you're adjusting to that. I mean, you played a near perfect game. I'm sure it wasn't, but how do you keep these guys from thinking it's gravy now?
Well, we talk about we want to be the best in the country, and the message to the team is that the issues are still in the film, whether you win, you lose, whatever it is. And the immature player or the immature coach looks at it and says everything's good, and we won, and we won, pretty handily. But the facts of the matter are that the issues are on film, and as the level of play increases through conference play, and as the season goes on, those issues aren't going to go away. So, the seasoned coach or the veteran player can identify that, be critical of themselves, and again, you've heard it before. If you're worried about the process as opposed to the result, then you're going to be more focused on that. And so, just keep hammering away. And as much as you say it, some of the younger guys don't quite get that. The older guys, I think, do. But we're just going to keep swinging as hard as we can to make sure they understand that's what it is.
Brian, as you mentioned, Indiana has a new defensive coordinator, new offensive coordinator. I know their defensive coordinator was promoted from within, and it's still Tom Allen's defense. But have you seen any big differences from them compared to last year on either side of the ball?
No. They've they've kind of been running the same defense they've run in the past, and they have some guys in there. Obviously, Ball is really good in what he does. He does a lot of things for them, and their secondary is really, really strong. Some good, strong guys up front, and the linebackers played really hard the last couple of weeks. But yeah, they're running the same thing. They got the same system, but they got a lot in the system. They got a lot of different looks. They got a lot of different coverages, a lot of different pressures, and so as you get into year 2, year 3 into a system, you can start to get more intricate, and that's where they're at right now.
Master Teague, whatever was going on with him in camp with the injury, looks like he's running well. As you evaluate him, what are you seeing from Master Teague?
Again, he didn't practice all that much this preseason, so it was hard for him to get into a rhythm. He has run pretty hard on film the last 2 weeks, and if he can continue to practice the way that he has the last couple of weeks, then I think he's going to only improve as it goes on, and we'll feel more comfortable with him, handling more snaps in the game. But it's clear to see that once he gets some momentum going, he can run through contact, and so that's what we're looking for.
Over here to the right, Austin.
Ryan, after you had a chance to watch the film, where did you see the biggest improvement from Justin from week 1 to week 2?
I think he kind of picked up from where he left off. Still, made some good decisions. I thought he was, pretty good in the passing game. I still took a couple hits in there that didn't like. He's going to have to learn that way. A couple things in protection as well. Took one bad sack. But overall, I thought, it was a pretty clean game. And, it's the same thing. There's going to be things that show up. He got away with a couple throws that maybe as the competition increases, he won't. But overall, it was solid, and we got to keep building on it.
You take your, learning through failure approach with him. The big picture, he's been really successful. 9 touchdowns in a couple of games and all that yardage. How do you teach through the success or manage the expectations as they change and grow?
Yeah, I think that there's no rule book or way to handle that. I think you try to feel it as you go and use your experiences the best figured that out. And I think the good thing is he's had some success the first 2 games, so I think he's got some confidence, which is really important for a quarterback, especially going on the road in a conference game. There's got to be confidence there, and he should have confidence. He's played well the first 2 games. And so, we'll keep building it as we go. But the idea, and I think Mike Yurcich has done an excellent job. Mike has really done a really good job of, putting the game plan together in terms of making it clean, clear, and concise so that Justin can play the way he is on Saturdays. And, Mike's had a great history of quarterbacks. He understands how to prepare a quarterback. And to see the way he's worked with Justin here so far is remarkable.
Touched on that, going on the road for the first time for him as a starter. What's that like? How does it change things for him?
Well, when you go on the road, it's different because you're just not in your normal routine. First off, the noise will be an issue on third down, things like that, and you can't ride the emotional roller coaster. You have to play each play as it goes. But it's different. You got to travel there. You got to stay in the hotel. You're kind of out of your routine, out of your rhythm. And so, with that, you have to make sure that as a team, we know how to run the ball, take care of the football. We have to stop the run, and then we got to play with toughness. And then that's how you win on the road.
Second row left, Bill.
Ryan, I think you mentioned this after the game, and it does seem apparent from watching the first 2 that maybe you're not doing as much of the crossers in the passing game as you did last year and maybe even 2 years ago. Is that just a product of your personnel, how teams are defending you, wanting to try new stuff? Just shed some light on maybe why that's not as much of a focus as it was last year.
Yeah, like I said, we have our whole offense in. Now what we focus on and what we decide to give Justin is based on a game plan deal, but it's also based on the fact that he's only played 2 games, and that's we have buckets of plays, and one of them is what you're talking about, and we have all those. We have them all, and when it's time is right, we'll use them. But that hasn't been the right game plan that we think in those first couple of games, and so we'll continue to install those things as the time is right and we feel like the scheme fits. We have been seeing a lot more zone recently, and so we'll just keep rolling from there.
And I know guys like Paris and Terry have elite level speed, and obviously you guys have a fast team here, but what your catch and run ability compared to last year, how different is it?
It's hard to tell right now. I'm kind of interested to find out as well as we get going. We've got guys open so far. Guys have been open, and as the the level of competition increases, those windows are going to get tight for Just. The coverage is going to get tighter for the receivers, and so then we're going to have to be able to make those throws and catches with tight coverage, and then also, like you're saying, create yards after catch. And I still don't think we know the answer to that yet because we missed 2 guys and Johnny too. All 3 of those guys were excellent at yards after the catch. So, but that's a challenge for our guys on the outside and making sure that we can do that because that was a lot of yardage last year.
Right next door, Ari.
Ryan, Jeff Okudah seems to be playing with, I don't know, just a different chip on his shoulder maybe than we've seen in the past. Has he transformed just what you've seen in the building as a leader for this team, and is he just carrying himself like one of the captains and one of the main core players on this team in defense?
Yeah, I think that he's playing like a pro. He's approaching it that way. You can see that he's playing decisive when he's on the field. I think that's also a guy who's going from his second year to his third year, and he's got some experience now. He knows what to expect, and he'll still tell you he's a long way away from being a finished product. But I think he's listening to Jeff in terms of the technique that he's trying to teach. I think he understands the scheme, and again, year 3 into the program, he's killing it. I mean, we're in the second half, and it's pooch punt, and he jumps in there and runs down on a gunner and almost gets the thing on the 1-yard line. That's just goes to show you what kind of kid Jeff is. And again, he's got to keep building as the competition increases, but he's off to a really good start.
And one other non-related question: Jalen Harris got in really early in the game. We weren't sure if he was going to be in the rotation at all this year. What have you seen from him, and why was he on the field so soon?
Yeah, Jalen has done a good job on special teams. Anytime you do a good job on special teams, you deserve to play. And so now he's into his third year, and he's a guy that has a lot of ability as well, and we've seen him flash at times. So now he's got to go prove it in the game. He's got to be consistent, but he provides us some depth, and you'll see him in the game moving forward.
Yeah, Austin Mack's had kind of an up and down career, but he's been a reliable guy a lot of times. How would you kind of assess his career here so far?
The injury last year made it hard, and he's made some big catches for us. And he's a guy that we have to count on, especially on third down, to be that big, strong receiver that we can rely on. And he's been around for a while. He's a veteran. He knows what it looks like. He's got good size, and so now it's just a matter of production for Austin. And so far he's done a pretty good job in these first couple games. He had that hamstring in the preseason, so he wasn't able to kind of be a finished product going into the season. But he's getting better. His legs getting stronger, and we're going to need him big time when we get into the conference play here.
And he has talked about leaving a legacy that's bigger than football, with some of the stuff off the field. How important is that, and how much do you encourage that kind of thing?
Yeah, no, obviously leaving a legacy is critical. When you're all done here, what do you want people to think of you or say about you, or what do you leave? And I think about that all the time as a coach. And so we all want to do that, and we all do that different ways. And certainly the way you go about your business and the way people think of you and the way you handle yourself is really important. And you always want to be first class, and the impact you have on people matters. And so I know Austin's a very thoughtful young man, and he thinks about all those things, and he wants to do that as well. And I think his focus right now is on football and being productive this season. But I know he's got a lot on his plate as well.
Right next door, Tim.
Yeah, Ryan, when your number one running back goes in and throws a block like J.K. did on that one touchdown Saturday, what does that say from a leadership standpoint, or as far as he is concerned and the attitude he's got? And number two, how would you analyze how he played from 1 week to the next?
Yeah, I thought the first game was, like I said earlier, was a little funky, in terms of the fits weren't great. But talking about the second game, I thought he ran hard with his pads down. I thought the line did a good job blocking for him. But he had a good edge to him. He played tough. He really did. That was one pickup. The other one was we had kind of mis-ID'd how we were blocking one of the protections, and he had to block a defensive end, run right through the A gap, and he stuck his nose right in there and blocked him. And that's a tribute to J.K. and Tony Alford. And protection is just as important as anything else. So that was really good, especially coming off of last week when we missed one of those. So. A big improvement. I would say that was a significant improvement from week 1 to week 2, and now we just keep going.
And one other quick thing, I would think you at least stole a glance at the game on Saturday night, LSU at Texas. What's just your take on Joe Burrow, how far he's come, and et cetera?
I watched the whole thing, and I couldn't be any prouder of a guy than Joe. The way he competed out there, the way he threw, he's come a long way since his freshman year. I wasn't here when he first got here, but spent a couple years with him, and seeing mom and dad in the stands and seeing him go about beating a good Texas team on the road like that. Couldn't be happier for him, and he's playing at a high level. Give him credit. I mean, he was throwing the ball, and he looked like an NFL quarterback out there. Really proud of him.
Front row, middle, Joey.
Indiana's got a new quarterback, redshirt freshman. What's stood out to you about him on film?
Yeah, he's very talented. We recruited him. He's out of Tampa, and very mobile, and very productive coming out of high school. And I'm not surprised that he's playing right away there. He's a really smart kid. Understands the game. When in my conversations with him in recruiting, he was really a good football IQ. And again, was very productive in high school, and so now he's stepping in as a youngster and had a good first couple games. So I think he's going to have a really good career, and he's very talented and very versatile.
Is there something that he does particularly skill set wise that could be an issue, or is it?
No. I mean, I think that's still yet to be seen as the season goes on. But he's mobile. He can run. He's accurate throwing the ball. He's pretty decisive throwing the ball, and he's smart. So. It's still early in his career, but he's talented.
Front row left, Doug.
I can't remember the stuff we've talked about in the past, so I apologize if you've covered this. But a couple times with the defense, you've said when you hired this staff, you had some things that you talked to them. You said were non-negotiable, like we've got to do, and then you sort of let them do their thing. What was that stuff?
Well, I mean, the first thing was stopping the run, and I mean, I know that sounds like no kidding, but that was a huge emphasis, and that. We were really sound in our fits in the run game, that we were going to play with a ridiculous amount of energy, and that it wasn't going to come down to scheme. At the end, it was going to come down to toughness, effort, tackling, run to the ball. And then, there was a few things in terms of a 4-down front that was a non-negotiable because Larry's done such a great job and the staff had done such a great job of recruiting all these defensive linemen that, we weren't really interested in a 2-gapping system. We wanted 4-down linemen who were going to go after the passer. So that was kind of it, and then those guys got in a room, and we're on that journey now.
So, with what you've seen through 2 games, and it's what we talked about all offseason, just sort of letting these guys play. I know, once you get here, recruiting rankings don't matter and that kind of thing, but just are you seeing some of the natural skill that these guys have coming out in the way you want it to? Because you do have some really talented guys on this defense.
Yeah. I think we're right now we're seeing the best version of these guys. I think, again, it's only 2 games, and we haven't had a conference game yet, but I think you're seeing some guys come out of their shell a little bit. You're seeing Malik Harrison show up, and he's had some really tough clips of film, taking on linemen or taking on, I think it was an insert by a tight end. He knocked them down, and some Pete Werner and, guys running the ball and tackling and being physical. And that's really important. Even in the game the other day, the quarterback escapes and he gets like a gain of 8, but he got whacked. And he got tackled, and there was like 6 guys running to the ball. And then when Shaun Wade comes off the edge and causes that fumble, there was like 6 guys right there. And somehow we didn't get it. I don't know how we didn't get it, but we were there. And if we keep playing like that and keep playing with that kind of pursuit and that kind of toughness, we're going to get more and more turnovers. And I think they believe in it and they feel it right now.
And that reminds me, Shaun Wade, just like he made a couple pops on some guys. Like, what do you think of what you've seen so far?
Very, very talented, extremely talented. He can do a lot of things. He can play outside. He can play inside. He can blitz. Helps us on special teams. Very, very talented. And I think he's going to have a great year.
Second row right, Tony.
You may have just answered this question. What's your favorite aspect of this defense?
Well, I think I said it early on. I think that anytime you've been through some stuff, you've been scarred, and I like that. I like that kind of group, and they have. They had to sit around last year and listen about how they went through some tough times, and they weren't happy about that. They're a very prideful group, and so they were kind of just working and not talking much about it and trying to be quiet about it, but at the same time they were angry, and they feel like they have something to prove. They have a chip on their shoulder, and boy, I love being around guys like that.
And then you guys have fielded 3 punts inside the opponent's 10-yard line this season. You've scored touchdowns on each of those ensuing possessions, forced a 3 and out. Is that as close to a turnover as you can get as a coach? How do you view those?
Yeah, so we have something we call the plan to win, and in the plan to win, one of the things we talk about is that when the offense gets the ball on the 25-yard line after a touchback or a kickoff return, our number one job is to get the ball to midfield. Now, obviously, we want to score, but it doesn't always work that way. But we got to get at least 2 first downs. If we get 2 first downs, we feel like we're jogging the best punter in America out there, and he's really good at spinning him inside the 10. If we get him inside the 10, we put the best defense in America out there, looking to get either a 3 and out or get them off the field before they get past the 20. At that point, we send the punt block or punt return team out and get the ball around midfield, and now it's the offense's turn to go score. And that's what you're talking about. And that literally is the plan to win. We talk about it before every game. We talked about it while it was going on in the game on the sidelines, and then we talked about it in the team meeting, showing the guys the clips, because that is the whole field position game. And when you start with the ball inside your 10-yard line, statistics show he was less than a 10% chance of scoring a touchdown. If you get the ball at midfield, it goes through the roof. And so guys understand that here, and that's part of our plan to win.
Sixth row right, Blake.
When Justin won the job, he mentioned that his gauge on his success would come from anticipating in this offense. Now that this quote-unquote preseason phase is over and you're entering conference play, how do you assess his progress with that?
Yeah, I think that's for everybody, and I think that's the key to really good play at the highest level of football is when you can anticipate what the defender is going to do or the offensive guy is going to do as opposed to react. That's when you become a great player. When you watch the best in the business, the Drew Breeses and the Tom Bradys and those type of quarterbacks, they already know what you're doing before you do it, and that's when you got them. And Justin's very talented, but that's the goal. We want to get to the point where he knows exactly what's going on before the play, and then it's just a matter of executing the play. He's a lot of talented quarterbacks out there who can get away with reacting, but we want to get it to the point where he knows what's going on before the snap happens. But again, that's at every position. That's DB, linebacker, offensive line, and that's why we spend so much time preparing. There's a physical preparation, but there's also a mental preparation, and we got to keep pushing on that. The coaches got to keep pushing on that because that will make a difference in the end.
Far left, Corey.
Coach, how much of your offensive play calling are you pre-scripting? And when you do that, what is your priority there? Is it to try to probe the weaknesses of the defense? Is it to get the ball in certain players' hands? How much are you scripting, and what are the priorities when you do it?
Well, we put the game plan together, and that's all the scripted, by formation and then situation. But we have our openers that we start with, usually about 10 to 15. But I don't like to get too stuck on that. We don't like to get too stuck on that because things change really fast. Either the looks you're going to get in college football just changed. Teams can go from showing one defense and all of a sudden they're in a completely different one. Or like last week, they were blitzing every snap. We knew after the second snap, it's all blitz. So now you need to quickly adjust and don't just stay fixed on the openers. And then you got to be able to adjust on the road, on the roll. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. And we try to do all the above. We try to get some guys some touches. We try to make sure we get the quarterback in a rhythm. We try to make sure we're moving the ball down the field, all those type of things as we get going. And then also, get a feel for what they're doing formationally, because most teams will have certain tendencies based on formation.
Burrow always said that the most important thing to him was to get his playmakers the ball. Is that also your number one priority as an offensive play caller?
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it. Obviously, you want to get those guys the ball, but there's a lot that goes into that, and, you want to get the ball in their hands, but then sometimes it's man-to-man. Sometimes, your playmaker may be in a situation where there's a blitz and you can't protect there, so, yeah, for sure. The number one goal is to get your playmakers the ball in space, number one thing. But there's a lot that goes into that. And so that's the goal, and that's what we try to figure out as the game goes on.
Front row left, Nathan.
Yeah, this kind of plays off the question I think you just got about Justin, but you asked a lot of asked about a lot of questions about his decisions in the passing game. What did you see as far as the progression in how he handled the run game week to week, either recognizing fronts or how he read the zones and made those handoffs?
Okay. I think he was good. He can be better. There's still some I think he wish he had back. But for the most part, I think he's got a good handle on checking the runs and who he's reading, in terms of his eyes are in the right place. But every time he plays, he's going to get better and better at that.
And you mentioned before there was an opportunity for Master Teague to get more snaps, but just I guess in general as a head coach and as an offensive play caller, how do you want that balance to be? I mean, do you like having that sort of bell cow running back? Is there sort of a ceiling for how many snaps or touches another running back could get in?
No, I think that J.K. is our number one back. Last year it was kind of a split deal with Mike, but now it's J.K. and then those guys are going to support him. But again, we usually have between 75 and 80 something snaps, so it has to get spread around a little bit. And based on how the game's going, there may be a long drive of 10 plays where we got to roll. Then there's times where we can get in a rhythm and go 4 or 5 plays and score. Another 4 or 5 play drive where he can keep going. So sometimes it just depends on how the game's being played out. But we want those guys to provide some depth, and they're going to have to play for us.
Got time for a couple more questions. Second row middle, Bruce.
Probably two of Troy Smith's most famous plays here were plays where he scrambled away from pressure against Penn State in 06, against Michigan in 05. You made the comment earlier about Justin and you'd like for him to bad sack, like you said. How do you know when it's the right time and when it's not the right time?
Yeah, you don't. You try to give him certain parameters, and you got to let him play, and then he watches it and learns. And the guys on the perimeter got to do a better job too of staying with him in a scramble. The play's never over with Justin, so the ball came out with a little bit more rhythm last year with Dwayne. It was kind of 3 and a hitch. The ball came out, 2 hitches to check it down, and we were on to the next play. Well, here those guys got to stay alive, and I think we're getting a feel for it. Certainly we don't want to throw the ball down the field late in the middle of the field. And we got to be smart with that. So again, can you really control all of it? No, you can't. You got to kind of let it go, but give them certain parameters and then trust them.
Every week in college, there's an outcome that blows people's minds because it's a team that shouldn't compete on paper that does. Army almost did with Michigan. Georgia State did with Tennessee. Some people would equate Purdue and Iowa losses the last few years to that kind of a situation where they might have not had a guy you even offered. IU may be that team this year. I'm sure you guys have done self-evaluation of that. In those situations, what's the anatomy of how that happens, and how do you keep it from happening?
Well, I think there's a lot to go. I mean, if there was an easy answer to that, it wouldn't happen. There's a lot that goes into that. And, it's something that we're obviously aware of and we talk about all the time. And the mentality that we have is that, if you're the champ and you're the boxer, they're going to kind of try to knock you out every time you go in a ring. And, we're going to get everybody's best shot. We know that. So don't be surprised. And we have to bring it every single week. And the only way to do that is to make sure that you're preparing this week just like you did last week, and then find a chance to be a little bit better. And if we ever take, the shortcut on something or don't do it the way we did it the week before, then we set ourselves up. And that's physically, emotionally, and mentally. So physically, we have to be ready to go. We have to have energy. We have to get rest. We have to recover. Emotionally, preparing for the game. And then mentally, making sure we know what we're doing. We have good scheme, through the coaching staff, and then the guys can execute it when they get on the field. And if we do that and then follow the plan to win, then we'll be fine. But any time if something like that doesn't happen, then you set yourself up and you get exposed.
We're here for the right play.
Over the years,
Final questions.
this game in Bloomington has felt like a home game for Ohio State. Coach Coop, I think, clinched a Rose Bowl berth there, and the party went on for days or whatever. I mean, is the road, or when you get to a place like this, when you've got as many fans as they have, how big an impact does that make?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you go on the road, like you said, it is the road, and especially the conference game, it's hard. But it is amazing no matter where we go, whether it's Dallas when we were at the Cotton Bowl, or even we played TCU last year, or we played out at the Rose Bowl, or any of those games. Buckeye Nation's traveled, and to feel their support on a road game is unbelievable. I remember before that TCU game, Joe was on the big screen, and LSU came back and beat somebody. I forget who it was, and the whole place was going crazy. That was all Buckeye people. I thought that was really cool. We came out of the tunnel, and you could hear all the Buckeye Nation screaming and yelling as we came out of the tunnel. That's special. And so we know everywhere we go, we're going to get some support, and boy, it means a lot when we go on the road.